All right, so as per our last video, we're having fueling issues with the TT. So we've gone ahead and we picked up a spicy little upgrade here. So we've got our brand new Mark II TTRS low pressure fuel pump we're gonna throw in. And hopefully this is gonna fix our stupid little hesitation issue that we currently have, because we need to get this thing ready to roll. As like I've said in many videos in the past, we have everything ready to go to get the TT tuned and a lot faster than it currently is right now. So without screwing around too much, I'm gonna throw you guys in the tripod. We're gonna pull apart the whole back seat area of the TT, and we're gonna go ahead and throw the TTRS fuel pump in. Go for a little rip, get some fuel, and do some testing, and hopefully this fixes our issue, as I don't really wanna do too much more maintenance with this car, and I really just wanna be able to go out and drive it. So we're gonna start turning it up hopefully after this goes in. So let's find out if this is our issue. So would highly recommend, if you have a mask that you can wear while you're doing this, put it on. But we're gonna start by pulling all the wiring and stuff out. So this is your low pressure fuel pump controller. This is pretty easy just to disconnect here. So we're just gonna undo that guy, pull that off. Once you have the little rubber gasket, this piece out of the way, you can kind of just reach your fingers under here and pull it up. Pretty simple. Route all this through so we can get rid of this guy. And then we're gonna disconnect the pump control module. You can just put that somewhere else as well. And then we're gonna need to drain the fuel lines and stuff. So that's where this guy's gonna come in handy. And we're gonna grab a whole bunch of rags just so we don't have to do a whole lot of cleanup. And to hopefully reduce a little bit of the fumes. We have the door open as well. I'm actually just gonna kind of get everything I need so I don't have to keep getting out of the car. Okay, so some other stuff you're gonna need, like a flathead or like a tiny little pry bar and a hammer to be able to get the lock collar up. And then just some picks and some small flatheads to undo the fuel lines, because they're just push type. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this on. If there's anything important I need to talk about at this point, I will voice over in post, so because I don't think you'll be able to understand me. So luckily with the two fuel lines off, not a lot came out. When I took this out the first time to check to see if the low pressure fuel pump had any visual issues with it, a lot more came out, so thankfully this is good. So once you have the two fuel lines off, you're basically gonna wanna go ahead and tuck them underneath the front of the little fuel pump area, just to kinda keep them out of the way, which obviously is easier said than done. Just kind of get them out of the way. And then we're gonna go ahead and undo the lock collar, because the lock collar is the next big part of this. Put my mask back on. Lock collar. The pump is basically free at this point. Okay, so now we're gonna lift the top of the pump out. It is spring loaded, so pull the spring off, one of the two little metal rods, and then you're gonna pull, there's a feed tube, one that comes from the secondary pump on the other side that helps fill the main pump. Pull that bit out. I'm actually gonna take the gasket completely out right now as well. That out of the way, because we're gonna need to reuse that. We're also gonna undo the feed from the other side, which is a little pressure fit clips. You're gonna have to stick your little, I wouldn't say your little because I have small hands, but we're gonna have to stick one of our arms into the fuel tank, find the quick connect, whatever you want to call it, for the pump, and just undo that. And then once that is undone, the entire fuel pump should lift out. Go ahead and bring this in here. And there we go.
Fuel pump is out. And now everything else we're gonna do outside of the car. We're just gonna put this back over top to reduce the smell a little bit on the inside of the cabin, and then we're gonna go outside.
Very quickly, the most important part of doing this this swap or this upgrade, or for whatever reason you're doing this, is this little tube right here. So this little quick connect guy will go and connect on the driver's side if you're in the US, and that will be the passenger side if you're in the UK, to the auxiliary fuel pump, which pumps the fuel from the driver's side or the passenger side of the car, depending on where you are, into this pump. Because when you have a quattro car, the drive shaft passes underneath the fuel tank, and so it's a double tank or double sump fuel tank. And one thing you have to know is, if you've ever messed around with low pressure fuel pumps in a Volkswagen before, these little rods that are on the fuel pump don't actually lock into the head. Like if I were to pull this apart, it would come apart. So you haven't broken it, so don't worry about that. And then if you see in here, if I can get the lighting, if it'll focus as well, right in here, there are these two little holes. Well, it does matter. So you have the larger hole on this side. There's a second hose that comes from that secondary pump. It's the bigger one that isn't part of the quick connect that you have to stuff into the end in here. So obviously there's only like really one orientation that the entire pump can go into the car. Don't forget that you do that as well. But at this point, there is nothing that you really need off of the original pump unless you are reusing the gasket, which in my case I am. So I'm gonna clean this guy up so it doesn't reek of fuel, and then we're gonna slap it in. This is a really quick and easy install. If you are, I wouldn't even say this is mechanically inclined. This is just basically like common sense inclined, because you're not doing anything too mechanical here. So we're just gonna clean this guy up, and then we're gonna go ahead and slap the fuel pump in real quick. Okay, I'm gonna throw my mask back on here real quick.
And we're gonna jump right back on in here. And so the orientation of the pump is basically like this. So essentially, oh, and that's really dirty now, is you want the float to the side of the car that the fuel pump is open on. So for me, it's the passenger side. And we're gonna go ahead and put the gasket over the ring of the fuel pump, because we're gonna need that later. And then we're gonna go ahead and try to carefully lower this down without the spring coming off, because that's essentially going to be the hardest part here. So all right. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Beautiful. Simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's see if we get any pump prime when we turn the key. Sounds like it. Beautiful. Okay. Looks like it runs. I know we have to do a fuel pump adaptation, so I'm gonna do that in a second, but I'm just gonna let it sit here and idle. So, all right, so naturally in good old T-dub fashion, I have absolutely no fuel, so we're gonna quickly go for a little boot scoot and boogie here and go put some fuel in the TT before we do any major testing. That's the big thing when you're doing the low pressure fuel pump on these guys, is you want to make sure that your fuel tank is basically almost empty. So we're gonna go put some 93 in it, and then we'll go do some testing, and hopefully, I'm praying, fingers crossed, that this has fixed my issue, because now we have a bigger fuel pump, brand new high pressure fuel pump has been done, new fuel filter. I don't really know what else we can do to make sure this thing's got all the fuel it needs, but let's go get some gas and we'll do some testing and some logging on VCDS, and we'll go from there. So, well lads, I'm pretty sure we fixed the issue, because she don't lag no more. Yeah! Wow! Oh man, it's already getting so dark outside, but there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the TT is now officially fixed. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, but peace out. I will see you in the next video.